खास बात होती है कैंसर में ये होता है कि इर्रेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ एनी काइंड ऑफ ग्रोथ सिग्नल्स, इर्रेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ एनी काइंड ऑफ ग्रोथ सिग्नल्स, अगर सेल्स रैपिडली डिवाइड हो रहे हैं और ग्रो कर रहे हैं, इसका मतलब वो कैंसरस स्टेज में है। ठीक है, क्योंकि अगर नॉर्मल कंडीशंस की हम बात करें, एक नॉर्मल, व्हाट आर द नॉर्मल कंडीशंस, लैग कर रहा है, ठीक है। Irrespective of the growth signals, when the cells rapidly grow and divide, they are in the cancerous stage. If we talk about the normal cells, नॉर्मल सेल्स में क्या होता है कि सिमिलरली, जैसे अभी मैंने कहा, नॉर्मल सेल्स ऑल्सो हैव द एबिलिटी टू डिवाइड एंड ग्रो, ठीक है, बट इट इज इन केस ऑफ नॉर्मल कंडीशंस, ठीक है, क्योंकि why this is normal condition, because their growth as well as division, growth as well as division is tightly regulated by regulated in different stages, ठीक है, ये जो ग्रोथ है सेल्स की, इट इज रेगुलेटेड इन वेरियस स्टेजेस। ऑल्सो ये आगे भी बताएंगे कि क्या चीजें हैं जो रेगुलेट करती हैं ग्रोथ और डिवीजन को, ठीक है। तुमने देखा होगा सेल्स जो है वो अनकंट्रोल्ड स्टेज में, ये तो बहुत मतलब क्लास 9th का टॉपिक है, तुम तो जान सकते हो। कैंसर का मतलब क्या होता है, रैपिडली ग्रो करते रहते, ठीक है, अनकंट्रोल्ड ग्रोथ होती है सेल्स, ठीक है। क्यों? क्योंकि नॉर्मल सेल्स भी ग्रो और डिवाइड तो कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ये जो ग्रोथ और डिवीजन है, इट इज टाइटली कंट्रोल्ड बाय द ग्रोथ रेगुलेटर्स, ठीक है। तो this regulation of the cells is done by the hormones which are termed as growth hormones. बहुत सिंपल बता रहा हूं, इसको ध्यान रखना, अगर हो सके तो कहीं एक शॉर्ट नोट्स की कॉपी में बनाते हुए, ठीक है। वैसे मैं ये लेक्चर रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूं, अगर हो सकेगा तो मैं व्हाट्सएप पे डाल दूंगा, अगर सही आया तो, ठीक है। सो व्हेन ग्रोथ एंड डिवीजन्स ऑफ द सेल्स, अगर हम ग्रोथ की बात करें, सीधे दो चीजों की बात करेंगे, ग्रोथ प्लस डिवीजन ऑफ द सेल is triggered in hyper state, is triggered in hyper state, then what happens, the cell will never stop dividing, the cell will undergo a stage in which they will never stop dividing, ठीक है। मीन्स what is this kind of stage, say it is an immortal stage, means literally the cells are going to be immortal, ठीक है, means they doesn't die like the normal cells, they doesn't die like normal cells, ठीक है। क्यों? सबसे पहली चीज मैंने बताया कि जो नॉर्मल कंडीशंस में डिवीजन और ग्रोथ होती है सेल्स की, इट इज टाइटली रेगुलेटेड बाय द ग्रोथ रेगुलेटर्स, ठीक है। लेकिन अगर इनकी जो जो डिवीजन है और ग्रोथ है, अगर रेगुलेट नहीं करी गई या रेगुलेट नहीं की जा सकती, मींस इफ द सेल्स आर ट्रिगर्ड इन द हाइपर स्टेट, द सेल विल नेवर स्टॉप डिवाइडिंग, means they are literally becoming the immortal, means they are not going to die. These are the complications, major complications of cancer. This is the initiation of cancer, we can say. Because why this happens, because we all know that we have two phases, growth, division, and why this is going to happen, this is going to happen because the killing pathways or killing mechanisms inside the body, are unable to recognize these cells and kill these cells. ठीक है. Why this is going to happen? Their division is immortal, or they are immortal, they have immortal lifespan, because uh, because the killing pathways or killing mechanisms are unable to recognize and kill these cells. Why? Because if we talk about the normal mechanism, in normal mechanism means when the normal mechanism is going to be faulty or modified, then an own body of an individual will become curse for him. ठीक है? Means if if there is a cell in our body, this is the cell, it is going to divide into two daughter cells. Division, it further divides into two daughter cells. ठीक है? So this is normal division of the cell. There are growth regulators. There are growth regulators which are going to block this block the further division of the cells. Means they are not going to divide further in case of normal mechanism. When the mechanisms are normal, then there are some pathways, some growth regulators which are going to block the further division of the cell, which signals that the cells will not have to divide further. ठीक है? And after halting the growth as well as division of the cells, once the growth and division of the cells is halted, then what we need, we need killing mechanisms. ठीक है? What killing mechanism do? When cells reach as when cells reaches at its maturity at particular times, then killing mechanisms come into action. They signal that the cells now have to die. ठीक है? This is in case of normal cells. This is the case of normal cells. Means we have two things. What are those two things? One is growth regulators, other is killing mechanism. These both are most important. मीन्स अगर कोई सेल ग्रो कर रहा है, ठीक है, और डिवाइड कर रहा है, तो एक तो हमारे ग्रोथ रेगुलेटर्स होंगे जो उसके फर्दर डिवीजन को रोकेंगे. ठीक है, और एक हमारे जो होते हैं, हमारे जो किलिंग मैकेनिज्म्स और किलिंग पाथवेज जिनको कहते हैं, वो फर्दर वो सेल्स को किस तरीके से कि सिग्नल करेंगे कि हाँ अब इनका टाइम पूरा हो गया आफ्टर अ सर्टेन लेवल ऑफ मैच्योरिटी. ठीक है, सेल्स को जो डेड सेल्स होते हैं, ठीक है, उनको फ्रेगमेंट्स के फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट करके और उनको हटा देंगे. ठीक है, बट इन कैंसर दीज टू आर चेक पॉइंट्स. इससे ठीक है, ये हमारा जो ग्रोथ रेगुलेटर्स हैं एज वेल एज किलिंग मैकेनिज्म्स हैं, दीज टू आर द टू इंपॉर्टेंट चेक पॉइंट्स. ठीक है, बट इन केस ऑफ कैंसर दीज टू checkpoints are going to be faulty. ठीक है, देखो अगर ये फॉल्टी हो गया, अगर ग्रोथ रेगुलेटर्स फॉल्टी हो गया, अगर ये मैकेनिज्म इधर वाला जो ग्रोथ कंट्रोल कर रहा है ये फॉल्टी हो गया, तो सेल्स फर्दर डिवाइड होते जाएंगे होते जाएंगे होते जाएंगे, ठीक है, अनकंट्रोल्ड स्टेज डेवलप हो जाएगी। और अगर सेल्स दूसरा मैकेनिज्म अगर फॉल्टी हो गया, सेल्स खत्म नहीं हो रहे, तो सेल्स कब मतलब उनका जो तुम्हारी जो मोर्टेलिटी है सेल्स की वो अफेक्टेड होगी, मींस सेल्स इमोर्टल हो जाएंगे पूरी तरीके से, ठीक है। मींस इन केस ऑफ कैंसर इफ वी से, हाँ, इन इन केस ऑफ कैंसर control of growth and division, growth as well as division becomes faulty. This is one checkpoint. Also, point number two, the killing pathways of the cells are affected in case of cancer. ठीक है, means due to this faultiness, the cells will start dividing and dividing and dividing, means they are not going to stop the division and uh, are not going to be killed, ठीक है। And this phenomena, this process of uncontrolled division results in the formation of tumor cells, ठीक है। दो कौन से चेक पॉइंट हुए, एक ग्रोथ वाला, दूसरा किलिंग मैकेनिज्म, ठीक है। मींस ट्यूमर सेल्स, या इनको हम क्या ये भी कह सकते हैं कि दीज आर आल्सो टर्म्ड एज इमोर्टल सेल्स, ठीक है। नाउ आफ्टर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ ट्यूमर सेल्स और इमोर्टल सेल्स, these cells now going to gain another functionality. What kind of functionality? Means they are going to move from one place to another, move from one place to another, and there on another place they are again going to cause another type of tumors, ठीक है, which ultimately, and this is stage ultimately becomes much more dangerous, because why? Because these cells are going to become invasive, as well as they are going to invade uh, other tissues. They became invasive, they are going to invade other tissues and cause tumors, ठीक है। and we call these type of cells, these type of tumor cells as malignant tumors or tumorogenesis, tumorogenesis. This is also termed as growth of tumor inside the body, which is going to ultimately cause means growth. If we are going to call in a single line, the growth, division, as well as propagation, sorry, propagation, proliferation of these tumor cells inside our body will ultimately be caused as cancer. Now, again, one question is going to arise. The question is how these cells, how these normal cells gets the above mentioned means this kind of properties. Okay. The question arises how they are becoming the tumor cells, or what is responsible for the change of normal cells into tumor cells. What causes normal cells to become malignant? So means there is something which is going inside the normal cell. There is something which is going or triggering inside the normal cell. कुछ ना कुछ तो ऐसा हो रहा है, ऐसा क्या हो रहा है नॉर्मल सेल के अंदर कि वो अल्टीमेटली मेलिग्नेंट फॉर्म में या ट्यूमर फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट हो जा रहे हैं. Which are means there is something going inside the cell which is triggering inside the normal cell, which ultimately converts normal cell into tumor cells. ठीक है. These changes can be caused by several different factors. Several different factors means what kind of change? What kind of change or what kind of factors means there should be some change in the nuclear region of the cell. Why? Why nuclear region? I am telling because we all know that the whole system inside the cell is controlled by the nucleus. So there is something which is happening inside the nucleus. So there must be, or we can say that there must be some kind of change that is happening inside the chromosomes of these cells. ठीक है, chromosomal changes or DNA we can say. ठीक है, entirely we can say DNA. There will be some kind of alteration in the DNA inside the cell that can be caused by several types of factors. ठीक है. What kind of DNA changes are responsible? Means there should be random mutation which can be caused by chemicals such as ethidium bromide or physical factors, or physical carcinogens such as irradiation. Some of the early habits as well as environmental factors can also cause mutation. ठीक है. Now this is one, two. Third one is means what is going to change the chromosomes, what is going to change the DNA inside the cells. That's why cells are going to become immortal. ठीक है. Number first was random mutation that is caused by the chemical such as ethidium bromide or physical carcinogens such as irradiation. It can also be caused by the early habits or environmental factors, some of the environmental factors also. ठीक है, that causes mutation. Number third is due to the infectious agents, infectious agents such as viruses, for example. SV40. ठीक है, means these are all going to change the chromosome sequence into the cells, chromosome sequence into the cells into something else which will ultimately going to trigger the cells to become malignant. ठीक है, number 4 was inheritance. Inheritance, that is, it can be inherited from one generation to another. ठीक है, and for this inheritance, what is required, there is something which needs to be changed in the germline cell, germline cells. Germline cells means the cells which can travel from one generation to another, means they can travel from one generation to the next generation, such as sperm cells or egg cells. ठीक है, means there is something, there is alteration in the germline cells instead of the somatic cells, as somatic cells are not going to travel from generation to generation. Somatic cells are not going to travel from generation to generation, but in the germline cells there will be change. So ultimately we can also say that the DNA or chromosomal change will also affect the protein production. Protein production, and further the downstream change will going to the downstream change will ultimately going to change the regulation of growth as well as the killing mechanism. ठीक है, this is the reason that eventually the normal cells are going to be malignant. This is the reason behind that. Now, if we talk about the mechanism of cancer, if we talk about the mechanism of cancer, okay, I already told you that the growth and death is regulated, is tightly regulated. ठीक है, तो few signaling pathways are there which are responsible for the growth of cells, signaling pathways that are responsible for the growth of cells, and ultimately there are few signaling pathways that is responsible for the cells to die. ठीक है, so from converting from normal to cancer, what happens, the growth pathways in the cell is upregulated. Growth pathways in the cells is upregulated. ठीक है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा ग्रोथ हो रही है, ठीक है। और जो डेथ मैकेनिज्म्स हैं, डेथ पाथवेज हैं, वो डेथ पाथवेज विल बी डाउन रेगुलेटेड, ठीक है। क्योंकि देखो, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट दीज टू पाथवेज, अगर जो ग्रोथ पाथवे है वो अप रेगुलेटेड है, ठीक है। एक एग्जांपल लेना कि ग्रोथ पाथवे अप रेगुलेटेड है, हालांकि तुम्हारा जो डेथ पाथवे है दैट इज नॉर्मल। एक कंडीशन ये हो गई कि ये नॉर्मल है बट ग्रोथ पाथवे अप रेगुलेटेड है, तब भी जो सेल्स हैं दे स्टिल कैन अंडरगो द एपोप्टोसिस प्रोसेस, apoptosis process, or termed as programmed cell death, ठीक है। So what we are talking about, we are talking about that if growth pathways are upregulated while the death pathways are normal, ठीक है, then the cells still can undergo the apoptosis cell death, ठीक है। So the reason behind that, we can say that the reason behind that means the major cause of turning cells into cancerous cells, the major cause of turning cancerous cells is modification, modifications, we can also say that modifications uh, in the way that how they are making proteins, they are making proteins, means different types of proteins are required, different types of proteins are required by the cell to grow as well as for apoptosis, to die. The proteins that are required by the cells to grow are mostly made up of oncogenes, means the proteins that are required by the cells to grow are made up of genes that are termed as proto-oncogenes, ठीक है, proto-oncogenes. And what if there is a mutation in this proto-oncogene? Gain of function, gain of function, ठीक है, gain of function mutation in those genes will ultimately is going to produce more or more of growth factors, more and more of growth factors, and all those proteins that is helping the cells to grow, ठीक है। तो प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स, ठीक है, मींस सेल की ग्रोथ के लिए कुछ ऐसे फैक्टर्स रिस्पॉन्सिबल हैं जो कि प्रोटीन्स में ही आते हैं। मींस अगर हम सिंपल शब्दों में कहें तो प्रोटीन्स आर रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द सेल्स टू ग्रो, क्योंकि वो जिस चीज की बनी होती हैं, जिस जीन की बनी होती हैं, जो अल्टीमेटली अगर हम कहें कि वो जीन्स जो रिक्वायर्ड हैं फॉर द ग्रोथ ऑफ द सेल्स, दैट जीन्स आर रिफर्ड एज प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स, proto-oncogenes means that are required by the cells to grow. So first is proto-oncogenes. The next is we are going to talk about is tumor suppressor genes. सप्रेसर का मतलब दबा देना किसी चीज को, है ना, इनिबिट करना एक तरीके से मान लो। तो why they are termed as tumor suppressor genes? Number 2, because they ultimately suppress the growth of tumor cells. They are going to suppress the growth of tumor cells. ठीक है, मींस प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स क्या करेंगी, ये ग्रोथ को बढ़ाती हैं, बट ट्यूमर सप्रेसर जीन्स ग्रोथ को डाउन रेगुलेट करती हैं, मींस एक तरीके से लिमिट करती हैं. ठीक है, means these are the second types of genes other than the proto-oncogenes that suppress the growth of the tumor. And what if we talk about loss of function mutation? Loss of function mutation in this gene will also push the cell to change from normal to cancerous cells. Okay. So what we are getting from this, from these notes, that if we have two types of genes, proto-oncogenes as well as tumor suppressor genes. ठीक है, तो if there is gain in function mutation, and if there is loss of function mutation. ठीक है, then this both conditions forces the cell to be cancerous. ठीक है, these both can cause the cell to become cancerous, which is mediated by the changes in the genes that ultimately involved in mediated by changes in the genes that is ultimately required for the protein production. Okay, why protein production? Because the factors, there are number of types of factors which are proteins. Okay, so if we talk about changes in the DNA, talk about alterations in the gene, then the first thing arise in our mind is mutation. Okay, mutation, if we categorize into two parts, it is, one is point mutation. Point mutation, what is point mutation? It is termed as point mutation, number one, because if there is change in single nucleotide, change in single nucleotide, change in single nucleotide of what? Of sequence in the gene sequence, termed as point mutation. For example, we have P53. It is a tumor suppressor gene. Tumor suppressor gene. ठीक है? If there is loss of function mutation in this gene, that is P53, it becomes inactive. It becomes inactive. So when it becomes inactive, ultimately the apoptosis pathway gets blocked. ठीक है? Next example is, if we have, suppose we have a gene KRAS, it gain in function mutation, it is uh, hyperactive. It will become hyperactive. Okay, and ultimately cell cycle will continue. Basically, RAS, we are talking about, I've given an example of RAS. RAS is a signaling molecule. RAS is nothing but just a signaling molecule which is required for the process of MAP kinase pathway. This is required for the process of MAP kinase pathway, which ultimately is required for cell cycle to progress from one phase to another phase. ठीक है, मैप काइनेज पाथवे का ये अगर हम कहें तो एक तरीके से रास जो है वो सिग्नलिंग मॉलिक्यूल है. क्यों रिक्वायर होता है? क्योंकि मैप काइनेज पाथवे में हमारे जो सेल साइकिल है उसको प्रोग्रेस कराने के लिए फ्रॉम वन फेज टू नेक्स्ट. बट अगर रैस इज हाइपर एक्टिव, ठीक है, जैसे यहां पे हाइपर एक्टिव हो गया था ड्यू टू गेन इन फंक्शन म्यूटेशन, देन द सिग्नलिंग प्रोसेस इज ऑलवेज टर्न्ड ऑन. ठीक है, तो these are the examples of point mutation. Number one, if we take next example, that is second mutation, chromosomal mutation. ठीक है, chromosomal mutation means if chromosome, part of the chromosome is going to be deleted, it can cause what it can cause? It can cause regulation of cell cycle, regulation of cell cycle to fail, which ultimately going to result in an uncontrollable process of cell cycle, sorry, progress of cell cycle, which results in formation of cancerous cells. ठीक है, so it is an example of chromosomal mutation and some part is going to be deleted, so this is termed as deletion. ठीक है, number two, second example of chromosomal mutation is translocation. Translocation means change of a position. Suppose if a fragment of the chromosome is cut and translocated, ठीक है, translocated to somewhere else. ठीक है, कैसे समझाऊं? जैसे if a part of the chromosome is cut and is translocated to some other part of the chromosome, ठीक है, means such as if we talk about the talk about, this is chromosome 8, let's say it is chromosome number 8, and this part has been, this fragment of the chromosome has been cut, uh, this chromosome of the fragment has been cut, then what it is resulted, there will be a short arm in chromosome 8 because already the segment has been cut and it is translocated to some other chromosome such as chromosome number 14. Here it is added. ठीक है, means at the bottom of the telomere of chromosome 14. This is just an example to make you understand. ठीक है, and so this type of mutation will be referred as, type of chromosomal mutation is as translocation. Just like in case of Burkitt's lymphoma. ठीक है, the first one is deletion, the second one is insertion. This is chromosomal mutation I am talking about. ठीक है, the third one is, first one is deletion, second one is translocation, third one is क्या होगा, insertion. ठीक है, means what happens in insertion is a third gene is inserted in between the other two genes in a chromosome. A third gene is inserted between the two other genes of the chromosomes. This is just like in case of uh, some cases of virus mutated cancer. ठीक है, वेट एक मिनट, और पाथवेज कौन, पाथवेज ऑलरेडी नोट्स में प्रोवाइड कर रखे हैं, फिलहाल तुम ब्रीफ अभी जान लो. एक चीज और, एक फंडा और है, एक फंडा और है तुम्हारा, जो अभी मैं प्रोटोन को जीन्स की बात कर रहा था. द बेसिक क्वेश्चन दैट इज ऑनको जीन्स, ऑनको जीन्स, all those genes which are earlier proto-oncogenes. ठीक है, वो सारी जीन्स जो पहले प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स थी वो अल्टीमेटली तुम्हारी ऑन्कोजीन्स है, जो पहले प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स थी. क्यों ऑन्कोजीन्स हो गई? ठीक है, प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स से ऑन्कोजीन्स क्यों हो गई? व्हाई? बिकॉज प्रोटो ऑन्कोजीन्स व्हेन म्यूटेटेड दे बिकम ऑन्कोजीन्स. ठीक है, and what is oncogene? all those genes all those genes which produces some proteins. In simple terms, all those genes which produces some kind of proteins which ultimately causes cancer. ठीक है, or in expanded form, if you can say that oncogenes when translated, they produce a specific type of proteins known as oncoproteins, which are the proteins that are required for development of cancer. Okay, so also if we talk about the oncoproteins, there are two types, positive as well as negative. Positive ones induces the cell division, and proliferation pathway. However, the negative oncoproteins inhibits the cell division. ठीक है. And if we talk about the examples of oncogenes, the proto-oncogenes can be growth factors. Example: C, cis. Growth hormone receptors. ग्रोथ हार्मोन रिसेप्टर्स एग्जांपल तुम लोगों ने सुना होगा EFGR, which is epidermal growth factor receptor. ठीक है. Just like TKR, that is tyrosine kinase receptor. Some GTPase, example RAS, and also the transcription